All right, welcome in everyone. Big day in Washington football news. Terry McLaurin signs a 3-year extension. We're going to get to the details here in a little bit. Welcome into Pro Football Enterprises. Uh, Make sure you like, comment, subscribe on this video if you're not already. Let us know your reaction to the deal. I know at this very moment there hasn't been a ton of details listed, but we're going to get into what we do have available to us and give you our instant reactions before we jump in anything. Ben, how are we doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Hello again, everybody. Thank you, as always, for being with us. I'm excited. I'm really happy for Terry. I'm even more happy for the Commanders fans. I'm happy for the organization. I'm glad this got done. So I feel great about this happening. But like you said, we'll get into the details. But I'm really excited that they got this together.
Yeah, I am too, and I think I can speak for most fans when I say that this just feels like a weight that's been lifted. It's like this was just like the doom and gloom of the off season, right? It's like when is Terry going to get done? And it really didn't start happening until about the last month or so. Because we all expected it. Okay, it's going to come at some time, and then that time never really came until today, and training camp's already over, right? So the entire month and a half of training camp, there was just this feeling of like, well, it's going to get done, and there was like, oh God, what if this doesn't get done? Like, what's going to happen? And especially that anxiety really set in last week or so. But now it's done, hopefully 2 weeks is enough that he can get ramped up to be a full go week one, that there won't be any limitations, and that hopefully, just the way the season starts out, with week one being against the Giants and then 4 days later playing on a Thursday night, that there's no potential for soft tissue injuries, right? I mean, it's always a potential when you step on the field, but that he's not going to be at any increased risk with that. That's my main concern at this point.
It's a great point. And I'm going to stay away from the business side of this for a couple of minutes because we're going to go way deep into that. But emotionally, I'm really happy that this did not end in a trade, you know.
Yes.
And if it had ended in a trade, that's life, that's business, that's the NFL. You keep remaking the roster over the next few years, life goes on. But I'm really glad it didn't. I'm glad Terry is going to stay here with the franchise. And, there's no predicting the future. Maybe he's not the Terry we all knew him to be once he gets back on the field. Maybe he's just not the same guy. Or maybe he gets an injury. Or maybe next year we see him take a step back. You never know. But I really like what I saw out of him last year. I don't see any slowdown here. I'm really thankful that they put this together because this was the one big thing emotionally. This was the one really big thing that wasn't going in a positive direction. Lots of other little things, right? You always got that. But man, this is the one big thing. We're like, boy, we're just coming off that beautiful season. We got some kind of good news going on the stadium front. The owner, everybody likes the owner. I mean, we got this young quarterback who looks like a future guy. And then there's the Terry thing, it just kind of puts a little cloud on everything. So I'm just thrilled to death that it did not end in a trade, that he's staying with the franchise. And hey, they may trade him next offseason. You never know.
Yeah.
Or 2 years from now, they may release him. There's no telling the future. But for now, for this year, this team was going to struggle without Terry. This offense was not going to be the same without him. So you really needed him if you wanted to make any kind of a run this year at a division, at a playoff spot, at a playoff run. You really needed Terry to be a part of this. You just kind of didn't have any other options as far as keeping a good offense this year. Thrilled to death that this happened.
Yeah, so I mean, this is big for a couple reasons, right? So offensive line, they're starting to come back healthy, starting to come back, working their way back. Brandon Coleman, he's healthy at left guard now. Sam
Yeah,
Cosmi might be a go for week one. I'm not a fan of that, as I've mentioned a couple times before,
right.
on this show. I'd rather him wait, start out on the PUP list and come back after week four. That's just me. I'm more cautious. He's a good guard. I don't want to lose him because they rushed him back, right? But he's coming back sooner probably rather than later. So the offensive line is going to be hopefully practicing all as one unit. Hopefully that's the week one unit, right? And hopefully for most of the season, right? Obviously injuries happen, but the starting unit. Noah Brown, he's coming back. Okay, he's hopefully going to be fully healthy. He had a decent practice. He's looked good in practice, apparently. Moving around and all that, so that's a good sign. And now you get Terry back. So this offense rather quickly is starting to come together, and be full strength. So that's really the important part. My only question is, can they get there's the next 2 weeks enough time, to really fully gel, to really fully get everyone healthy, and to make sure you're ready for, I mean, 2 games in a 4 or 5 day span. I mean, that's a tough task, and especially to start out a season when most of your main components haven't been fully healthy or on the field. That's tough. That's a tough ask for anybody. And given those factors, it's going to be a little tougher. So fast start's going to be important. I hope it does happen, but the the long-term side of things, it's looking up.
Yeah, and listen, I don't think 2 weeks is enough. But this is not a young guy. This is a veteran. The offense is not going to be drastically different than last year. It's not like they're installing a whole new system that he needs to get familiar with. It's not a new quarterback from last year. So you've already got some of those stable things. I think probably the two areas that may show up in the first couple of weeks where they might see a little limitation is just his timing with the young quarterback. The timing might be a little off, right? And having not done the work that they would normally put in, and then maybe on some of the nuanced plays that the OC wants to install. If they've already installed some of those plays, if Terry hasn't been a part of that, I'm sure he's seen the playbook and studied that part of it, but still not having the precise placement on the field that he needs to be. And if he's going in motion on some of these snap counts on some of the more nuanced plays, right? Maybe we don't see him on a few of those for the first couple of weeks, but the rest of it, boy, he's learned every route he's ever going to learn in his life. He's not going to learn any new routes at this point in his career. And then again, like you said, you just hope he doesn't pick up soft tissue injury in the first couple of weeks by trying to rush back into this too quick, into live action, as it were. 2 weeks is not enough, but again, I don't think he's going to be. It's not like he's going to be sitting on the bench for 3/4 of the game. He's going to be in most of these plays and game. So I feel really good about it. The one other thing I will add, and the Patriots always did this so great for decades, is focus. This is over now. We don't need you to be on Twitter or X or on social media talking it up. We don't need your family members doing that. We don't need different members of the team commenting on the contract and all that. It needs to be back about winning. Your personal business work is done now. So get back on the field. Let's get focused just like we were last year. Let's be all into every practice and every game because all of that should now be put aside. It's taken care of now.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing right now is getting ready for the season. Okay. Like I said, everyone's starting to get healthy. Everyone should be on the field now. Hopefully there's no major injuries that come in the next couple weeks. You should be good. You should be full strength. Okay. Now's your time to really dig in and dig deep and maintain that focus. Because like I said, I mean, those first 2 weeks, they're important. It's a division game and a game that could be a tiebreaker come playoff time. So against the Packers on Thursday night. So those 2 games, while, it's a long season, it's a 17 game season, every game's important. And those first two, you want to get out to a hot start because later on that schedule, as we've mentioned previously, it doesn't get any easier.
No, it doesn't. We've done all the on the Box Score Network. We've been doing all the predictions, right? We've been going through all the scenarios, and one thing all the shows keep coming back to, all the guys who've spent the entire offseason looking at this, is that NFC race for playoff spots is very tight. There is not a lot of difference between these teams. And you start off 0-2. It's not that you can't dig yourself out of that hole and go on a run. You can, but that one of those two losses to the Giants or the Packers could be the difference of a tiebreaker at the end. Like you could be sitting there at 10-7 and miss out, because you lost to the Giants on week one. That's a very real possibility. That's how thick, I think 6 or 7 of these NFC teams are. And that's even assuming that a team like Chicago or a team like, the Saints doesn't have some surprising season. That's just the teams we're expecting to be in this hunt. So yeah, you're right. I don't necessarily need Washington to start off 2-0, but I don't need them to start off 0-2 either because every game is going to matter by the end of the season.
Yeah, so let's take a look at the contract. Okay.
We're good.
What limited details we actually do have
Hmm.
about this. Very, very minuscule details. Okay. So it's a 3-year extension worth up to $96 million. So that's a $32 million annual average salary. Up to. Okay. So I've this Terry and his agent Buddy Baker, who I have crucified on this channel. This is their time. This is their 24 to 48-hour period to take a victory lap.
Right.
Okay, like look what I've done.
Yep.
Look what I was able to do. And then probably sometime tomorrow, maybe even on Wednesday, the details are going to get released about this deal. And it's not going to look as favorable as appealing. I think what because this includes the 96 million includes base salary, it includes guarantees, it includes the signing bonus, it includes any incentives, it includes any other milestones or markers or anything of that nature. It's not 96 guaranteed. Okay. It looks good on paper. It looks good for the agent to make himself look more appealing. You know, there's many things that go into this. It's not 32 million. Okay. It's not 32 million a season. Um, and that's the important part. And the important part is because these guarantees haven't been released yet, we don't know what the contract looks like. And that's on purpose. That's not by accident. Um, $30 million signing bonus. If we look at Terry's previous deal, I believe he had $28 million of signing bonus. Um, and there was about I don't remember how many guaranteed money, how many guaranteed dollars there were in that contract, but he definitely got a raise this time. Okay, last time it was a 3-year, $68 million deal. This time it's a 3-year on paper, $96 million deal. Um, including this year including the extension, the math works out to be a 4-year, $120 million deal, right? So that's $30 million average if you include this season. Not a bad deal. It just when we get to his age 33 season, 34 season, then it's going to look a little questionable. There's going to be an out somewhere in there. Um, and I'm sure a lot of the language, a lot of the guarantees, a lot of this minute stuff that fans don't think about. They look at the AAV, and that's most fans look at that, and that's about it. I'm sure that's what a lot of the bickering back and forth was about. Um, so your reaction to the numbers, the limited numbers that have been provided to us, and how you think, I mean, on the limited information we have, how you think this deal shook out.
You're spot on everything you just said. And I got to say, we we are probably going to be one of the few. I'm not one of the only. There's some others that do it. One of the few that don't try to immediately announce a winner in this contract negotiation because of the age we live in, which is get me an opinion right now. Within 3 hours of this news coming out, get me an opinion right now. We've got opinions, but they're reserved opinions. We will not have a final opinion on this until we see the rest of the details because you said it. They are so important. What is that final guarantee going to be? That will determine where this contract negotiation really ended up. That phrasing up to $96 million, the way it was released to the press that way, is so key. That suggests, and I don't know for sure, that would suggest there's at least some incentives involved in this contract, which is a little unusual for a guy who's this good and a contract this big. You don't usually see too many incentives going on, but it suggests there might be some incentives involved here. And then the fact that they released a $30 million signing bonus, but not the guaranteed, suggests again exactly what you said. the agent wants to have a day or two to kind of celebrate that $32 million AAV. And you mentioned for weeks and weeks and weeks that the sweet spot for this deal was 31 to 32. You kept coming back to that. And I kept coming back to the idea that 3 years is where I wanted to be on this extension. I did not want to get any farther than that. And nobody expected it to be, right? So the 32 AAV is about where a lot of folks kind of expected it. You in particular were all over it. That 3 years about where, but we still don't know that key piece. So if they've guaranteed, obviously they've guaranteed more than the $30 million signing bonus. If they've guaranteed, and I'm not even counting this year doesn't even count as far as those guarantees go for me anyway. If they've guaranteed somewhere around $60 million, then McLaurin and his camp won big time, okay? 60 or more. If it's down around 45 guarantees, then that would be more like the Commanders said, hey, we'll give you that AAV, but we're not going to guarantee a lot of that. So we'll see, and I don't know yet. I'm still glad they got it done. And I got to say this, I've been battling this opinion for years. I've heard so many people get on TV or on social media, sometimes ex-players, sometimes just fans, and they trot out this line of reasoning is just get it done. Just find the money. I don't care how, just find the money. No, this is a negotiation. This is a business deal between an organization and a player and his agent, and there's no extra cash sitting around that you can dip into. It's not like, oh, by the way, we offer Terry McLaurin a brand new truck for every year for the rest of his life to put this deal together. You don't get to do those things, right? It's a negotiation. It involves a salary cap. It involves certain rules they go by, and it's going to take time. There's no finding money, and people put that out there like, hey, just get the deal done. It doesn't matter where it comes in at. It did matter. Okay. It mattered to everybody. All right. And, if they finally worked it out, I'm glad they did. But you're right. Until a couple of days from now, it might even be a week. I've seen it take a week. I've seen it take 10 days sometimes. They kind of just slide it out later. They don't really want people to focus on it. I wouldn't be surprised if it didn't come out around the time the season started, to be honest,
Yeah.
what the actual guarantees are. But that is the whole key. You're 100% right.
I'm thinking it's either at or around 60 in terms of full guarantees.
I figure so, and if it is, McLaren got a pretty good deal here.
And it is, but at the same time, I mentioned this to you in pre-production. I've mentioned it previously as well. I wonder if the holdup was or has been, because this is what I would want to do if I was Adam Peterson or just any NFL GM. If you have 1 year remaining on your contract and there's no guarantees on that, but I'm getting ready to sign you to an extension, I'm going to push as many possible guarantees that I can to this season because you're already playing this season, right? I already have this money dedicated and set aside for you anyway, right?
Right.
So why not guarantee that salary in case of injury or in case of anything else? And then I'll have, basically an extra void year, basically. Um, and to me, as from a GM's perspective, that's a no, a no duh. Try to, get what you can for your money. But McLaurin's camp, Terry's thinking, well, I mean, if you do that, then I have one less year of security, in terms of guarantees and so forth. So that could have been a battle as well, because I can't imagine that some of this money hasn't been pushed to this season. Maybe not all of it, but I find it hard to believe that none of it's going to get pushed to this season.
We've
I
seen it go in all kinds of different directions, and I'm sorry for interrupting, but
No, you're good.
if because this is where we start to get into how the agent is communicating to their player, their client. If the agent is going back to the client and saying, hey, they guaranteed 60, but it's really only $60 million, including this year, the 25 year, then that's a ridiculously low number, which is not a good deal for the player. It's just not. But if that 60 is 60 million of that 96 right there, if 60 of 96 is guaranteed, then that's a really good deal for the player. And that's where I go back to my 60 versus 45. If only about half of that 96 is guaranteed, then the Commanders came out fairly good here. But if it's more like 60 of the 96 that we're seeing here, then McLaurin really kind of came out better here.
Yeah, I think it's a good deal for both sides. Okay. Um, I have this article up here by Ben Standig, who, if you're a Commanders fan, if you pay attention to Commanders media, you're pretty familiar with Ben Standig, local beat reporter, wrote for The Athletic for many years now, is on Substack. Um, he came out with this article in the past couple hours stating that, Washington came out under 25 million AAV. Like that was their initial offer to him. And McLaurin wanted over 35. That would have made him the second highest paid receiver behind Jamar Chase. So if we're saying just say it's 36 that McLaurin came out with, then and Washington was at 25. I mean, on paper, the information that we have, it looks like Washington gave a lot more than Terry's camp did. However, it's those guarantees, right? And as you can see here, what I kind of took this little snippet from his article here, um, where AJ Brown, most of his deal was guaranteed. DK, about a little less than half of his was guaranteed, and then Justin Jefferson, about 3 years, a little less than 3 years, well, about 3 years of that was guaranteed. So it's going to be interesting. We don't have all the information yet. On paper, it looks like Washington gave a lot more, you know, where Terry didn't really meet in the middle. But again, it's going to come down to on the AAV number. But again, that includes incentives and everything else that's included in that deal, which I'm sure, especially in the later years, is rather heavily incentive laden. Um, but yeah, I mean, so it's a good article. It's got a lot of info, a lot of people saying, why didn't this get done earlier? This could have happened months ago. Um, Also, we have people saying that, Peters set a precedent, for existing and future players that, hey, they're tough negotiators, and that, that'll just mean like, hey, you're not going to get what you want right out of the gate. Like you're gonna have to work for it, you know. And if you really want it, we'll drag this thing out, you know. So in a way, it's good business. In another way, it's kind of aggravating from a fan's perspective and from a team's perspective, coaches and fellow players, because they've been dealing with it all summer long, you know. So it's a good article. Go check it out. Ben Standig on Substack. But um, yeah, I mean it. We really can't fully analyze this until we get the full details. And again, when are one of these void years kick in? That's what I want to know. When can they get out of this? Not that I'm ready to kick them out the door, but I want to know when the outs are, and how much they're going to be on the hook for. Because God forbid, what if he does get injured this season or early next season? Then you're still hung up on these guarantees. I mean, that's not good, but I don't think it's that way. If I had to guess, I would guess that most of the guaranteed money is going to be out in that first year or two. But we'll see.
Yeah, the as a general manager, the first thing you always want to know is how can I get out of this? How quickly? Because sometimes players' performances go down and sometimes they get old and sometimes they get injured. So you always want to have your out, right? That's just a smart way to do it. The 32 AAV, let's just go with that for now. Um, it does appear that he got closer to the number they wanted. I'm sure he probably wanted to be over the Metcalf number. That's what we repeatedly kept hearing. And listen, we've been over this several weeks now. We had heard reports consistently that the Commanders had come in initially somewhere around that 24, 25 range. And we had heard reports, over the past 3 or 4 weeks that McLaurin camp had come in at the 35 number, somewhere right in there. And both numbers were equally ridiculous. But again, that's the way negotiations are. And the reason it couldn't happen earlier was because neither side wanted to give in to the other side. And so we'll find out who gave in the most once we see the guarantees. But that's why. And listen, for the Commanders, I have no problem, especially since they got the deal done. I have no problem with the fact that they did not want to throw a bunch of money at a player who's got a little age on him, right? He's not old, but he's in the advanced stages, right? The veteran stages. I have no problem that they wanted to negotiate tough. I have no problem that they came in with a low number. I have no problem that they wanted to try to avoid kind of what these inflated, currently inflated NFL market has become over the past 8 to 10 years. Check, check, check. That's good business. I don't mind that. It's also good business to sign Terry McLaurin because, again, I cannot say this enough. He specifically represents a lot of the face of your organization right now. He and the young quarterback, right? But also he represents all the hope for your offense this year. You're just not going to be good without him this year, particularly. And on top of that, this is not all the other players. The next time you have a negotiation next year with Tunsil or with one of the defensive backs or whoever, if you decide you don't want to pay them, then trade them. They are not Terry McLaurin, right? They are somebody else. So you cross that bridge when you come to it. I just really thought it was going to not look good on this franchise, kind of trying to reestablish good business here if they weren't able to eventually get this deal. It sounds like it came in higher than they really wanted, and I get it, but I'm glad they got that together. And I don't mind that it took all summer. Sometimes these things do. We saw it with Chris Jones 2 years ago. We've seen it with player after player after player. All right. Happens every summer to a couple of players. There's still a couple of guys around the NFL not signed yet or haven't got their extensions yet, right? So McLaurin actually got his before a couple of those guys did. It is aggravating, but that's just the way it goes. The Commanders didn't want to pay 35,
Nope.
so that's why they didn't give in earlier. And Terry and his camp didn't want to go all the way through training camp at 25 a year, so that's why it didn't get done earlier. People just didn't want to give in yet.
So this quote from a source in this article kind of encapsulates it. It states the obvious, but it's good to know that like an inside person like understands what, so because sometimes fans see stuff that I think that they're so trapped inside their world they don't necessarily see what we see. And it's also vice versa that we don't see what they see either. Um, this quote, they know how valuable Terry is, but they also know that they don't want to look back 3 years from now with him making 30 plus million a year, thinking they shouldn't have done that deal.
Right,
Which again, no duh, but that just
right,
kind of encapsulates what we've been saying, or most of us. Some people have said pay him whatever he wants, or some people say, yeah, don't pay him at all because he's gonna, he wasn't elite to begin with, and he's just gonna fall off the older he gets. But you know, it's it's tough. Well, again, we'll revisit this once more details get released. Um, so you know, we'll cross that when it comes up, which it might be what might be the morning of week one, because no one's gonna care at that point. They're just gonna want to see the game.
no, everybody will have moved on completely except us. We will revisit this, I promise.
We will revisit it. In other news, Commanders news, recently, Brian Robinson Jr., starting running back, well, former starting running back, I suppose, did get traded to the San Francisco 49ers. In return, Washington received a six-round pick in next year's draft. In order to get the deal done, they did have to pay half the salary or a portion of the salary. There was about 3 or so million left on his rookie deal, and they paid 1.25 million of that. Um, I would imagine that he's going to be McCaffrey's primary backup. I couldn't imagine that he wouldn't. I mean, you have two starting caliber running backs on your team. Not sure he would take the back seat to in San Francisco, but Kyle operates in strange ways sometimes. So I'd imagine he'd be short yardage, goal line uh, type of back to give McCaffrey a break. I wouldn't say he's necessarily a change of pace spell back. I wouldn't really say that that's really his style. It's more going to be more short yardage, grind out some yards, maybe, some first and second down carries. But um, I don't have an issue with the move. What I have an issue with is the concept that okay, if you just take Washington out of the picture real quick. I'm going to tell you that this is a contending team. You have a contending team who they rely heavily on their offense because their defense isn't that great. And their running game is good, but not great. Okay. And they're going to trade their average to slightly above average started running back for a sixth round pick that doesn't help them at all this year with a quarterback on a rookie deal that you're trying to take advantage of. And you're going to put in hands, like your running game in the hands of, by committee, a 30 plus year old running back with a lot of mileage on him, a fifth round pick from a previous regime that we know did not draft well, and a current seventh round rookie who didn't play last year, and you have really no idea how he's going to perform until he actually hits the field. That, if I told you that's what, your favorite team did, you'd be like, that's kind of crazy. I'm not sure that I'd probably believe, like, what did this seventh ra round rookie do in camp? I mean, there was some buzz about him, but it wasn't like, oh my God, this dude's gonna be like the next LT. You know what I mean? Like, I cannot put that much faith in a seventh round running back. And I know I don't get paid to make these decisions. And I know, this made sense from a roster, management perspective. But if you wanted to trade him, why didn't you just trade him mid-season? Closer to the trade deadline. You still would have got the sixth round pick, probably mid-season. And if you picked up the rest of his salary for the rest of the year, it would have been about what, a $500,000 difference at that point. I mean, I would have, if nothing else, for the depth of it. I mean, I don't know what the reason would be unless you're that confident in Rodriguez and Krosky Merritt that they're going to be able to shoulder the load here. And I'm not saying Robinson was spectacular because he wasn't, but just the concept of it. You're contending this year. I'm not trading away assets unless I absolutely have to. And I don't think they absolutely had to do this.
See, and I agree with you. We'll circle back around and kind of get back to this trade specifics here in a few minutes, but just on the decision to, hey, let's get Brian Robinson out of here, right? I agree with you. I would have loved to have seen him stay on the team. If for nothing else, he's a guy who can carry a load. He's not spectacular. He's never going to be, but this was a younger-ish kind of a guy, not an old guy, on the younger side of things, who could carry a load, and he could produce. So I like that. Now there was several things to not like, and what I ultimately probably come back to is two things. Inside the building, inside the locker room, maybe he just wasn't particularly well liked or wasn't putting out the kind of effort they wanted. I don't know that. I'm just kind of guessing. When you see a productive guy who's kind of all of a sudden just boom out the door, it gives you shades of, hey, maybe he just wasn't fitting in the way they wanted him to. So, that's, maybe a little bit of conflict with somebody there. So that's the first thing. But then I'll go back to what I said a couple of weeks ago, and that is the scheme thing. It really feels like the Commanders are getting geared up here to not run the football in a traditional way very much. They're going to do that some, but not much. I think they're going to do a lot of, what's that, east west run the football. Been a lot of, I think we're going to see more RPOs. I think we're going to see more screens, wide receiver screens, running back screens. I think it's a lot of that. I think we're going to see a lot more of the mesh route type stuff. So I really think we're going to see a lot more of that and a lot less of that traditional up the middle type running that Robinson would often do. I think we're going to see less of that, not zero of that, but less of it. And so I think between those two things, somewhere in there, that's why they made this decision to let him go. But I'm with you. I would rather have kept him for the season, man. I mean, this is a guy that could help us in theory on paper and, based on what I've seen on TV.
Yeah, I mean, look, it was very frustrating at times rooting for this guy. Not because he's a bad guy, because I mean, this dude got shot in the knee and then started playing a couple weeks later, right? I mean, that's just crazy. I mean, point blank range, he could have died, right? And so I'll always commend him for that. It was frustrating seeing him play because he was always like half a step slower than I feel like a starting running back should be. So anytime he could have broken away, he'd always get tripped up, so like a 12-yard gain should have been like a 30, 40-yard gain or just a breakaway touchdown. And then unfortunately most of the time he just was not seeing the holes. So he would just run in right into the, guard center's backs and just push, push, push. And then that would be that was his running style. That is his running style. He just wouldn't look for
Right.
any other avenue to run. And it's so frustrating watching that because usually it ends up being maybe a yard, 2 yard gain. And I mean, they're hard fought yards, but it's 3 yards in a cloud of dust, whereas if you just look to the left a little bit, you could have squeezed through there maybe. And he started having fumbling problems last year. Look, it sounds like I'm not a fan of his. I was, but it was just frustrating watching him a lot of the time. I still think he's a good back. There were many times last year with the threat of Jaden running the ball where he was very effective. Okay. My contention still is if you're trying to win a championship, I don't think unless he just, like you mentioned, it just doesn't fit in to what Kingsbury is trying to do. There was no reason to do this now. You could have done it later, right? I don't think any other of the 31 teams are biting at the bit to get Chris Rodriguez or Krosky Merritt if you were to, put them on waivers, right? Like they didn't show that much in preseason other than the Monday night game, a couple of runs. They didn't show that much, and there wasn't that much buzz at a camp about these guys until there was rumors about Robinson getting traded.
Yeah, and listen, I agree. You mentioned one word, I've got the other one. Effective and productive. He was effective and productive last year. I You can use that. But it may be that this coaching staff looked at that run game and said, hey, it's not very efficient. We've got other options that should be more efficient, produce more yardage and more explosives too. So maybe when they looked at that, they said, hey, let's move on out of this kind of a style. I still feel like somebody in the building just had to have not particularly liked either his effort or his efficiency and said, hey, we just need to move him on because if not, why else would you really let him go for this? I wasn't a fan of them paying 1.25 million of his remaining salary, but I'm actually okay with it. I'm totally fine with it because you do get the sixth round pick. And listen, you're not likely to even find starters in the sixth round, more than likely. Statistically, you were unlikely to find that. But hey, you get something back to work with, right? And, at least you're not just releasing him for nothing. I always hate it when you release a player for nothing. If you already kind of sort of know you're not going to keep a player in the long term, let's move on and get something. I'm a big fan of getting something. So that 1.25 on the salary cap is not going to affect you in any great way for this year at all. It's just not. So on the whole here, I'm fine with what they got. I'm fine with what they did here. There had to be some reason why they decided Brian Robinson had to go, though. He was the most, by far, out of the running backs, the most productive last year. It wasn't even close. So there had to be a reason why they decided he was the guy that needed to go.
Running game should be interesting this season for sure. I don't know how it's going to shake out, but it's going to be a by committee approach until one of them steps up, whether it's Rodriguez or Krosky Merritt. It's going to be by committee until then. Um,
Yeah.
just to me, not the most effective way for a contender, but again, I could be eating my words here in a few weeks. All right.
Yeah. I still think the offense is good, but we'll see
Yeah.
about the running game.
Yeah. Are Ben any of these particular shows you wish to shout out this week?
Yeah. Listen, all four of the significant football NFL podcasts here have been doing previews of the season, specifically coming out with our predictions. So Simon and Friends, Two Peas in a Pod, Tricky Takes, Odds On, they've all four done some version of predictions. So if you want predictions, check that out. In the flat, they also have come out with week zero, looking back on the week that was. So check that out. College football week zero and a week one preview. Check it out.
I have no idea about this week zero thing. I'm not a college guy. It frustrates me to no end. I'll never understand week zero.
Nobody anywhere understands the week zero thing. Whoever came up with it must live in a basement somewhere and have 13 computers in front of them. Maybe zeros and ones are just their thing. I don't know.
All right. We might as well go ahead and shout out Box Score Network YouTube channel while we're at it. Make sure you go over there. check out the latest video because it is topic relevant. It was
Eh,
trivia night. Know your commanders, or just Washington football in general. It was a lot of fun. This is a continuation of a series. It was all one recording, but it's been split up into multiple videos, so that way it's not a little easier to digest. Um, this was part of our trivia night, and we mentioned it a few times. This one was the commanders portion of it. It was a lot of fun. Make sure you go check it out. Play along while you watch it. I mean, because you can name the players that, we're asking about, and it was a lot of fun. Hope we get to do it again, maybe sometime, maybe a mid-season trivia, or maybe at the end of the year. But um, make sure you go check that out. Subscribe over at Box Score Network, and if you haven't done yet here, Pro Football Enterprise, make sure you subscribe. Leave a comment about running back situation, Terry McLaurin's extension. Was it a good deal? Was it not a good deal? Let us know your thoughts down below. Anything else, Ben?
Thank you everybody for watching. But yeah, check out that trivia night on the Commanders if you're a Commanders fan. Fun work. Peyton did a lot of work on that to put that together. Fun trivia night. So go check it out.
All right, we'll see you all next to do unless there's surprise cuts tomorrow, which I doubt it. We'll see you all next time to do a week one preview. So we'll see you then.